And Brian, you're there? Yeah.
I'm here.
Perfect. All right, thanks. Then without further ado, I'd like to call regular board meeting number 32, 2019-2020 to order. I'll start with our Board of Trustees value statement. All members of our community are sacred and must be treated with dignity and respect. We value excellence in Catholic education, guided by shared responsibility as shepherds and the moral authority of the Church. We would also like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the people of Treaty 7. And with that, I'm just going to open our meeting with a prayer, if we can center ourselves. As the people alive in the Spirit, we pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. In anticipation of Pentecost Sunday, let us listen to these words of St. Paul. Brothers and sisters, no one can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. For just as the body is one and has many members, all of the members of the body, though many, are one body. So it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we are all baptized into one body. Jews or Greeks, slaves are free, and we are all made to drink of one Spirit. Please join in our gathered prayer. Lord God,
source of every good gift, you send forth your Holy Spirit
the world
and satisfy with me all who live.
Guide us by your Spirit,
Holy Spirit,
we may spend our lives in union and with one another. Enlighten our minds with wisdom as we serve this community and dedicate ourselves to building and maintaining learning environments permeated with your love. May the gifts of the Spirit be always recognized for the benefit of the common good, that all may quench their thirst for justice, truth, and mercy. Fan the flame of faith in the hearts of district staff, students, and their families. Fill them with your Spirit and inspire them to generously use the gifts that you have placed in their care. May they be faithful witnesses of the body of Christ and of a people sent forth to believe, to hope, and to love. Through Christ our Lord, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you. Just going to flip out of this. And if I could have a motion. Trustee D'Souza?
Unmuting. I'd like to move that the board accepts the agenda as presented.
Actually, Trustee D'Souza, there was a walk-in with an amendment that contains a couple of amendments.
Okay. I have to bring that up. Sorry.
Would you like me just to read it?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I could, in the interest of time, I would move that motion.
Okay, would you like to read it into the record?
Yes. Madam Chair, I've moved that the Board of Trustees amends the agenda by adding item 9.5, policy 4, item 9.6, policy 7, item 9.7, policy 8, and have item 13.3, SAC presentation begin at 3 p.m.
Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. And secondly?
And Madam Chair, I've moved that the Board of Trustees approves the agenda as amended.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thanks. Alrighty. Next motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of Trustees approves the minutes of the regular board meeting 30/2019-2020, May 13th, 2020.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay. And finally?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd move that the Board of Trustees approves the minutes of the special board meeting 31/2019-2020, May 25th, 2020.
Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. That will get us to your motion, Trustee Rath.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of Trustees moves to meet in private.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thanks. Carried. And with that, Dr. Zhu. Okay, just going to give us a minute to get these kids in, and then we'll open.
Madam Chair, I believe that we have all of our SAC students and guests who are waiting in the waiting room are now a part of the meeting.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I feel like I'm dating myself when I say this feels a little bit like Star Trek. I'm impressed with your ability to convene this. And before we move on with the public portion of our meeting, I would just like to, on behalf of the board, welcome each and every one of you who have taken time to be part of this important presentation. This is a highlight of the board's year, without a doubt. And in light of the unusual circumstances that we find ourselves in with COVID, face-to-face contact is a bit of a challenge. So it's really nice to see some smiling student faces right now. But if I can, I will reconvene this meeting. And as always, I'll start with the Board of Trustees value statement. All members of our community are sacred and must be treated with dignity and respect. We value excellence in Catholic education, guided by shared responsibility as shepherds and the moral authority of the Church. And we would further like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the people of Treaty 7. And before we go any further, as we always do, we open our meeting in prayer. And without further ado, I'll ask us to center ourselves in the name, as we near the end of the Easter season, we gather in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let us listen to these words from the Gospel of John. When the hour had come for him to pass from this world to the Father, Jesus looked up to heaven and said, "Now I'm no longer in the world, but they are in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, so that they may be one as we are one. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but I ask you to protect them from the evil one. They do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you have sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world, and for their sakes I sanctify myself, so that they may also be sanctified in truth." Please join in our gathering prayer. Lord God, you revealed the fullness of your love for us in Christ and continue to remain in us through the power of your Spirit. Increase the presence of your grace in our lives and open our hearts and minds to the voice of the Spirit, that your word may find its home in us and we may be sanctified in truth. May we joyfully and generously share the good news of salvation with others and be present in the world in the way that you are present. Fill the lives of all district staff, students, and their families with the grace of your Holy Spirit and lead them in their efforts. Inspired and guided by the Spirit, the world will come to know and experience the fruit of love and joy, peace and patience, kindness and generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Through Christ our Lord, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. And without further ado, I will turn over this meeting to Chief Superintendent Zoomless to introduce us to our Student Advisory Council.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure for us to be in the presence of our Student Advisory Council. And to get things started today, I'd like to first begin by thanking Superintendent John McDonald, who is there to help support this group, which is led by our principal lead, Mr. Steve Patingala, the principal of St. Anne Academic Center. And I know joining us today, we also have Michael Chason, who is a friend of Calgary Catholic and has been working closely with the student advisory group for the last little while. Welcome to our meeting. With that, I will turn it over to Superintendent McDonald.
Thanks, Dr. Zoomless, through the Chief to Madam Chair. As you read the information that was provided to you in your package, the Student Advisory Committee is formed of 3 students from each school, as well as a vice principal representative from each one of our high schools in the district. That's led up by Principal Steve Patingala from St. Anne's. I'm not going to get into great detail because it's provided to you in the package, and I know the people that you'd really like to hear from here are the students that have joined us this afternoon. I would like to provide a huge thank you to all the students that have joined us today. It's a highlight for me as well to work with this group. We don't, superintendents often get to work with students as much as the principals do, and every time I come to one of these meetings with Mr. Patingala, I'm absolutely amazed at the wealth of talent that's in the room and the incredible feedback that we receive from these students in terms of the questions that we ask them to help us guide The district of note, especially recently in the world that we're living in, COVID related, this group provided some amazing feedback around what grads could look like as we move through grads into June here. And just want to again extend a huge thank you, and thank you to Michael Chason for joining us today. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Principal Patingla, and he can lead us through this afternoon. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see everyone. Again, very unconventional, but this is becoming the new normal. I truly want to thank the VPs who have been sort of my connection to the students and your organization and keeping them supported during these difficult times. Our vice principals are conduits back to the schools so that when students actually want to share with the larger community, our vice principals are there to ensure that some of the conversations around faith, some of the leadership stuff gets back to the larger community. So I want to acknowledge them for their work. Like a proud papa, I get to work with these students, and since Dr. Zumlis has taken over, we've really kind of, I guess, switched our meetings because of COVID also, in that we've had about 10 Zoom meetings online to talk about faith and really getting it from a student's perspective on how we can go back to our schools when we get a chance to really impact the conversations around faith. Michael Chason has been an awesome advocate and support in all of this. We've created some new synergy that the students are going to share with you today. I really feel like a student's perspective has always been honored with SAC, but now it's a grassroots initiative that has this power to go and influence conversations in our schools. So we love that opportunity. I'm not going to say too much more because the students are here ready to present. We did it a little differently this year. We usually hear from our grade 12s, but because our group has been so engaged, we thought it was important any student that wanted to come forward could actually say a few things. We've got kids that are going to answer questions, but we also have a group that's going to lead the main presentation. And to start, one of the things we want to do is we want to start in prayer. And so I'm going to pass it over to Athena, who's written a very specific prayer for SAC and for our group today. So go ahead, Athena.
Hi, my name is Athena Adakaran, and I'm a grade 10 student from Father Lacombe High School. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, you are an amazing God, the everlasting King who reigns over us. We thank you for the abundant blessings you have showered upon us. As we are gathered here today, we ask that you send your Holy Spirit over us. Shine your light upon us so that we may understand your ways and the plans you have prepared for each one of us. Give us the knowledge and wisdom so that we may lead others in your path and guide them to become closer to your heavenly kingdom. Lord, you have chosen each one of us. You have called us by our name. Give us the strength and courage to be examples of your faithful followers and to bear the good fruits by doing your works. Lord, at this moment, we really ask your presence here, for you have said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am with them. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, take care of us as we continue our mission to guide others to you. Keep us all safe from any dangers coming our way and from the snares of the devil. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to gather here today. Thank you for everything you've done, and we ask that you just be with us. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Thank you so much, Athena, and I really appreciate you stepping up. It takes a lot of confidence and courage to step up as a grade 10 student and write a prayer and then present it. So I'm going to pass it over to Gemma. Gemma's going to set the context for our conversation today. And then Gemma, I want you to popcorn the next person, and I'll let the students kind of run the show from this point forward.
Hi, I'm Gemma DeMarzo, and I'm a grade 10 student at St. Mary's High School. So basically in this meeting, a few students on the Student Advisory Council will be sharing with you what SAC is really all about. As a team, we have 2 main objectives. Our first is providing a student's perspective to relevant issues. Each student at SAC was chosen to represent their school and grade. We feel responsible for advocating for our peers during these meetings and allowing for their voices to be heard. Our second goal is to aid our peers on their spiritual journeys by spreading faith, hope, and love. We understand that sometimes going alone can be difficult, and some people require guidance, especially in these unprecedented times. We think of it this way. When we are lost, it helps to have a guide. Being students ourselves, we feel that our peers will feel more comfortable reaching out to us. Now, I will pass it on to the other students so they can elaborate on what we do at SAC to reach our goal of spreading faith, hope, and love. Firstly, Abube will talk about connections to our schools.
Hello, my name's Ebube Anachabe, and I'm a grade 11 student at Bishop Burn High School. And so to connect schools together throughout our district, especially during this time of COVID-19 when there's social isolation, we were brought together to brainstorm ideas, and some of these ideas came together. We spent a lot of weeks brainstorming these ideas, and just to inform students and also to engage them and to keep us all connected as a student community, as that's something that we thought was really important to work on, to keep students informed and connected, and to really just be able to spread the message to them from students. And so in order to do this, we came up with the idea of creating an Instagram page where we actually were able to develop a video to introduce ourselves as a SAC team. And through this Instagram page, we hope to, in the future, to continue to connect students, as this is the best platform so far that we see as students using social media. And so I'd like to popcorn over to Brayden and Marissa.
Hi, I'm Brayden Merrick from St. Gabe's High School in Chestermere. This year, one of our major topics was graduation, and we talked about
Mr. P here.
Grade 9s for this year because of the whole coronavirus issue. We had to be a little creative with the grade 12s this year. Pardon?
You're really cutting in and out, pal, and we're having a hard time hearing you. So what we'll do is, can you get closer so we can hear you a little clearer? And then maybe Marissa can pick up some of the things because you guys are working as a group. So did you want to try again, Brayden?
Yes.
Okay, try again so people can hear. It's good info.
This year, one of our huge topics was graduation for the grade 12s and the grade 9s this year because of the coronavirus. We had to get a little creative with the grade 12s by having a virtual grad. We have many people working behind the scenes to collect videos, write speeches, and put a huge video for us together for us so we can have the grad that we otherwise would have had. Many schools have different ways of working this out, but one of the schools will have kind of like a drive-by grad to collect our grad caps and various tokens of graduation.
Thank you, Brayden. Marissa, are you going to continue?
Yes, I am Marissa Svoboda. I'm the grade 11 representative of Notre Dame High School. And as we did talk a lot about the graduating class, we did have a conversation about the next group of kids that are coming into high school, the kids that are in grade 9. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, their year was abruptly stopped because of COVID-19. They were not able to enjoy their last year of junior high, and they really don't get to ease into high school. So we talked about what can we do to help them have their first year of high school be easier and less stressful. If we do have the time and we are in September, if we're in school in September, we can help the grade 10s because they have the first half of the first day of school. We can almost set up an information desk. We can always have students around the school in grade 11 and grade 12 being able to help them. Or we could have one grade 11 and one grade 12 in each TA to help the new grade 10s ease into school. And we'll pass it on to Clarissa and Jamie.
Hi, I'm Jamie McKinnon. I'm a grade 12 from St. Martin de Porres. And this year our group focused on faith, hope, and love in order to spread the message and the motto of our school district. By doing this, we were able to reach out to students to understand how these terms mean different things to every student in our district. And then Clarissa's going to talk. I think.
Hello, Clarissa, wherever you might be. There she is.
Hi.
You have to, perfect. Go ahead, gal. Tell us where you're from.
Okay, sorry, was I muted? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. By speaking with Michael Treason, he gave us an insight on how we all have our own definition of these terms, and our group wanted the students of CCSD to discover that. We incorporated faith, hope, and love into all of our platforms and connections to students. These included our initiative to reach out to students in the district. It is still in the stages of development, but we have created 3 teams consisting of engagement, creative, and coordination to begin implementing strategies to stay connected to students. We hope to use these teams to develop creative ways to reach out and spread faith, hope, and love moving forward. Our team also had the chance to meet with Bishop McGrattan to further grow our understanding of how important faith is in our school district and how we have to stay connected through these times. He told us that we all have our own focus in our faith journey and we grow and learn through it. By speaking with both him and Michael, we are working on using their voices to spread our own version of hope, faith, and love.
Awesome, Clarissa. And who are you popcorning to next?
Gemma.
Back to Gemma. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now I'd like to take this opportunity to show you all a video we made to kickstart our faith, hope, and love mission. So just give me a second, I'll share my screen.
Man, the paper boy, evening TV. Did I get delivered here? Somebody tell me, please. So what's confusing me? Clouds mean that you ever see. Ain't a bird who knows your tree. Man, the paper boy, evening TV. Did I get delivered here? Somebody tell me, please. So what's confusing me?
Okay, so basically that was a video we used to introduce ourselves to the students by applying to something that the students kind of use and know. So basically I'm going to recap what you've kind of seen in this presentation today. And that is, we are a group of students united by a passion of having our voices and opinions heard. We're driven by the theme of faith, hope, and love, and our goals are to form community, inspire students to explore their faith, and allow students to have their voices heard. We hope we made our objectives clear, and we are happy to open the floor to any questions you may have for us.
There, sorry about that. I typically don't mute myself, but again, on behalf of the board, I know that there are going to be questions, and I realized just now that I have not introduced them to you. So I would, if you can get a wave from Trustee Wellman and Trustee Rath, Trustee Ivanelli, Trustee D'Souza, Trustee Lowe, and Trustee Williams. I don't know if you could see them all or not, but we're all here today and just delighted to have you with us. Thank you for introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about your work. I see I have Trustee Wellman with her hand up, so over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I am just absolutely delighted that so many of the students stepped forward and that we changed the format this year. I have to say you all spoke so wonderfully, and knowing that many of you are in grade 10, I just say kudos to you. I am so thrilled that you're embracing our next faith theme of faith, hope, and love so passionately. And I'm sure, Mr. Walsh, you must just be ecstatic because you certainly presented that to us not too long ago at a board meeting, that this will be our faith theme over the next 3 years. And the fact that these students have already captured that and are working on it, I think speaks volumes to how much you actually value the Catholic faith-based education that you're receiving in your high school. So I have to tell you that just means so much to me as one of the members on this board. But you know, I have to say, the comment that you made in respect to united by the passion to have student voices heard. You know, we want to hear your voices, we really do. And I can tell you that every time that we have met with our Student Advisory Council, the Board of Trustees have walked away with something. And so just know that your passion, your commitment to not just your school, but to every one of our high schools and to your peers is certainly very much valued. And just keep up your great work. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I have Trustee Rath.
Unmute. Hi, everyone. Oh, this is such a good experience for all of us. One of our board priorities is student wellness and mental health, and I just wondered, Steve, maybe there's one or two kids that can maybe touch on that, if that's something that you guys have worked on as a community, and maybe just let us know what you've done to bring back to your high school along that element.
So I'll redirect the students to when we met at St. Francis, and actually one of our topics this year was on student wellness, if you recall. So I usually have some pretty confident kids on here. They probably could bring us back to that time and share just with Trustee Rath some of the perspectives that were shared around wellness. That's when we were still in person in school, and it was a great conversation. We had a couple of district people come out from our instructional services area, and they worked with the students to talk about best practice around wellness in our high schools. Does anyone want to extend what I just said? Anybody? Go ahead, Marissa.
Sorry, I just need to unmute myself. Yes, as he said, we went to St. Francis and we had a conversation about student wellness. And one of the things was brought up is how many schools have a calm space. And it just is something to use to ease the students and just have a little space where it's not all about work and having to do project and hand-in stuff. But we also talked about the 7 key wellness things that I can't remember, but I know we did talk about it. And just to bring to light of how there are strategies that you can use to help make school easier.
Thanks, Marissa. Does anyone want to just say a few more words about wellness in some of our conversations? Gemma? And then Jamie.
So I can talk about it from a quarantine perspective. So last week we had a meeting with the bishop, and some of the ideas presented to us were that students currently are lacking focus and purpose, that they don't care as much. Like, why should we care? Nothing matters. They have a feeling of loneliness within them. And we talked about the unknown mental health effects that students aren't aware of at the moment, but are being present within their lives currently, and that our major life events aren't being celebrated, such as birthdays and stuff, because we are isolated. So as a team, as a design team, we are currently working towards reaching students through our SAC platforms, such as social media and D2L and stuff. So we have some plans kind of being brought out there. We talked about Fridays for Faith and types of initiatives kind of that united students together, and that kind of this initiative, like, it's okay not to be okay, and kind of bringing light forward that you're not alone.
Thanks, Gemma. Jamie, do you want to just chime in quick?
Yeah, Marissa just mentioned like there was like 7 key terms, and around that we did like a grace wheel, so you had to see the balance between all things in life. So it was like your physical health, your mental health, like it's more than just like your school health or whatever, like it's had the balance of all the grace wheel. And I think that was important for us to take back to our schools, and we had to implement it into your own school in your own way. And I feel like that was the way that we got our own voice into our own school rather than everyone doing the exact same thing.
Great answers, everyone. Back to you, Trustee Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got four hands here in the queue. I'm just going to go from top to bottom. Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, this is such a special surprise today. Every year we have a presentation from the Student Advisory Council, and I tremendously look forward to it. So I didn't think we were going to see your beautiful faces. And just seeing you truly brings me to tears, because you are our why. You are why we do what we do. And I know you spoke about the lack of focus and purpose. You're feeling it. We feel it too. I'll speak for myself. Sometimes it's hard to be focused and have that purpose. But you today, with your beautiful messages, and Athena, your amazing prayer, just reminded me of my why and why it's so important, because all of you are so tremendously important to us as trustees in the work that we do. So you've made my day absolutely perfect, and I thank you for that. And I also want to thank Michael Chason and Steve Patingula. What great champs we have in our district, and those are two of the finest. I can also say your voices have most definitely been heard, and loud and clear. Again, you give us renewed our purpose today. You spoke about being leaders for younger kids coming in. I mean, I have a daughter in grade 6, and I'm concerned about her starting grade 7 in September. What will that look like? And I was so grateful to hear you talk about grade 9s and how their experience is going to be moving into grade 10. You're definitely stepping up as leaders. And my question for you is, what will that transition look like? You gave a couple of ideas, but what are the plans that you have when those grade 9s come into grade 10? I'm sure very anxious and nervous, because they're not going to be walking into the school the way they normally would. And another question I do have is something I've learned today: popcorn over. Is that a term you guys invented, or is it just me not understanding lingo? Those are my two questions.
Anybody want to respond? Anyone want to explain popcorn also? Braden? I hope that Chestermere internet's working. That's I don't know, does it go out that far, the internet? Mr. McDonald and Trustee Lowe, do you guys got like high speed out there, or is it still dial up out in Chestermere? Sorry, Braden, go ahead.
High speed when my brother's on PS4. So, anywho, I can speak on the popcorn thing, but that's just been a little game that we've had forever, well, since I've been since elementary school. Our teacher would just call on us and be like, hey, say this about whatever, and then popcorn or move to someone else. It'd be like, popcorn, Jimmy, and then Jimmy would say something, and then Jimmy would say popcorn to Kira, and then Kira would say something on the topic that would be presented to us by the teacher. The teacher.
Great overview, Braden. Thank you.
I like that. Thanks, Braden. We should use that. Popcorn over.
Got most of that.
I have. Sorry, go ahead.
For the grade 9s.
Yes.
It might not be the same.
Hey, Braden, you always have great thoughts, but right now it's really hard to follow. So can somebody cover for him? Try a different device if you've got one, pal, because you always have great thoughts. Does somebody else want to talk about some of the transition plans for grade 9s? And I know we had a pretty good discussion on this, so and maybe we can hear from someone else, but if it's the same person, that's okay too.
I think Ethan has a hand up.
Oh,
I can
Ethan, go
talk
ahead,
about it.
Ethan.
Hey man, Ethan, go ahead.
Hi. I wasn't sure if you heard exactly about the popcorn reading. That's just like the speaker has the power to pass over to the next person who gets to speak. That's basically it. So about our transition for the grade 9s, I know that the SAC students are divided into 3 kind of teams, and I'm part of the creative directing team. And something that we're working on is a little video or presentation to give to the grade 9s because they didn't get to have a grad. So we want to help them kind of, feel that their transition to high school is going to be as smooth as possible. So yeah, that's one of the things that we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. That gives you guys you have great foresight, because those grade 9s are really going to appreciate that video and that leadership from you. Thanks.
Trustee Lowe.
Thank you, Chair Martin. Well, first of all, thank you to all of you coming here. And yes, Mr. Patingla, we do have high-speed internet out here in Chestermere. I suspect maybe Braden is one of our rural students who maybe doesn't have as good an internet. But Trustee Ivanelli kind of touched on one of the topics, and that was the support that you as the Student Advisory Council are giving to our students who are transitioning into different learning experiences, whether they're going from elementary to junior high to senior high, and then the senior highs that are leaving. So that made me think of the other part you were talking about and the work that you do and the passion you have. And that really is about our faith and serving for the common good. So you talked about the fact of bringing in conversations around faith into our schools, having more conversations. What could that look like? How could you be leaders in that? And I was wondering if you could provide me a little more information or some specifics that you talked about of how you could continue to elevate those conversations in our school environments as students.
Go ahead, Abube.
Concerning faith, hope, and love, I know one thing that really stood out and was really discussed during one of our meetings, of our SAC meetings, was how we were kind of experiencing as students some disconnect to faith, because it seemed like a lot of the adults were involved, but the adults didn't really have the student perspective on what faith was. And that was, that kind of sparked some ideas for us to try and get a student perspective on faith. And that is one of what our Instagram page hopes to do as well, and engage students in faith. I remember, I think Gemma said this, having something like a Faith Friday or something, really having us as students being the leaders to engage students in faith and know that faith is not just for adults, it's for children as well. And you can experience the same love of God that the adults experience.
Lovely, thank you. I've got Trustee Williams and then Trustee D'Souza.
Good afternoon, and we do look forward to this when SAC comes to us. And I'm not going to repeat everything that's already been said, just to say how proud we are of our students at Calgary Catholic and the respect and the knowledge and the faith base that you have. The question I have, in past years when SAC has come to us, they usually have some advice to give us as trustees as to what we can be doing to help with student success. I know one year that you came and told us that our teachers weren't using the smart boards properly. That's an example. So is there any advice that you would give us as trustees as to what we could do to help with student success for you?
Go ahead, Marissa.
And on the page of mental health and mental awareness, is one thing that teachers need to understand is that kids are going through stuff, and maybe piling them with assignments and tests are not the best thing, and to just once in a while check in and see if the student's okay. Because I've had a teacher that's checked in on me, said, hey, are you okay? Like, do you need to take, I know you have a spare next period, you can take your test in your spare and use this time to study. And that really helped me. And it's something that other teachers could probably learn from.
Great, thank you.
Trustee D'Souza? Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all so much. You know, as my colleagues have already said, we really, really look forward to this meeting with you. And we thank you, each and every one of you, for all the awesome work you're doing. I was looking and seeing all the different meetings that you've had, and I'm sure you have a lot of things to discuss and bring forth from your schools and all the students in your schools. I was really happy to hear that Michael Chason is really helping you with engagement with the students in your school, because sometimes you can be there and not hear what all the other students want. So I don't know if you're doing surveys or what kinds of things you're doing to engage the students in your school to get their feedback, because you're representing them, and then through them we hear what you have to say. And actually, Trustee Williams said exactly what I was going to say, because that was my big question, is the big ask is, what would you like us as trustees to take away from all the meetings that you've had all year long about the difficulties? And of course, you've mentioned mental wellness, and that's one that came up last year as well, I recall. And I know our district is instituting some mental wellness courses this year that I saw in our package. So I think that came out of that ask last year. So if there is another ask, I would like to really like to hear what would it be, so that we can consider it as trustees when we are making our decisions. Thank you.
Students, does anyone want to respond to that question? You got the floor here to make a difference and influence our trustees in some of the conversations they're having when they make decisions with senior administration. Braden?
Hello.
Oh, buddy, you're nice and clear, and they do have good Wi-Fi in Chestermere. Nice work.
It's just I had to kick my brother off the PS4. We're good now.
Okay, good. So are you going to respond? Are you able to respond to the question, or did you just kind of sign on and I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit?
Sign on and put me on the spot a little bit, because I can't. Okay. I'm not sure where we are in the conversation anymore.
Well, I'll ask the question again on behalf of Trustee D'Souza, and really is, what else can the trustees do to support students? What else can they influence? And support better support of students.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, because I think they're doing a great job as is. Okay. The thing that I would say moving forward would be, because we'll have our SAC meetings throughout the year and whatnot, and maybe just help us get the what's it called, Instagram page started, and help with that, and anything we need from higher ups that you take to them, they could help us out with. Just kind of be that extra set of hands that if we need, we have.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that you all also made the effort to meet with the bishop and appraise him on what you're doing and get his feedback in terms of our faith and how we can strengthen that. So I really appreciated that feedback. I'm looking forward again to next year. I thank you very much for being here. And I'm really looking forward to what you would have to report back in regards to increased student engagement, because that's what it's all about, is engaging all our students. And I'm looking forward to seeing how Michael will help you with that, so that we can hear some results next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have Trustee Ivanelli. Every trustee's had an opportunity to have a conversation with these wonderful students. So Trustee Ivanelli, and then I will make I've got one question, and we will allow Steve and these wonderful kids to enjoy the rest of the day. Trustee Ivanelli.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you engaging me. Braden, you talked about how we can help you with your Instagram site. What is your Instagram address? And I would be happy to follow you.
I'm pretty sure it's CSSD_students, but let me go double check that really quick.
It is, Braden. It is. I just checked.
Okay. Thank you.
So CCSD_students?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. We will get on it. I'm sure all of us will. Thank you.
I'll put the username in the chat so you guys can all see it.
Thanks, Marissa.
Perfect. Thank you. And again, on behalf of the board, I'd like to express my most sincere appreciation for our students, for your engagement, your interest, your passion, to Steve for helping to oversee this, and John McDonald. This is, I think, deceptively complex work, and your efforts are very much appreciated. I do have a quick question for Michael Chason, if he's still here with us. I'd sure like his perspective on his takeaways from getting to know this group all year. And was there anything particularly striking that he wanted to share with the board in terms of the interactions with these wonderful kids?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me on board. And it's for those of you that don't know what I do, my job and my role is to travel across the country to motivate, challenge, and inspire students. When I had a chance to meet Dr. Zoomless, his passion and his direction was a bit stunning to me. His fire, and you guys did a great job in, I think, bringing a great leader on board, along with John McDonald, John Wash, and obviously Mr. Patingala. We worked very well together. So this is a unique experience for me to be able to kind of get into the details of what it's like from a student's life perspective. I think what I've learned more than anything in this process over the past 10 weeks that we've been working together is it's kind of like an amplifier. And all that we're doing is turning up the volume. And I think what we're hearing out of those speakers should cause us to stop and to listen. Because it's one thing that I've learned from students is that from the adult perspective, a lot of times we're answering questions nobody's asking, right? We've got all this, what we think that we know and what we think we should do, and that's wisdom. But have we first stopped to truly ask the questions of, hey, where are you at? How are you doing? And I think we've heard that in the students so far. Their voice is powerful. Anything that we bring to the table, we're just trying to bring a bit of direction and ideas and letting them grow something, but also not just for the sake of this year. It's also with the mindset of passing on. So this can be something that is long-term, no different than how we're trying to strategically structure any direction for budgeting or any direction for engagement in the future for the district as a whole. And we hope this can become a platform. The most stunning thing, I think, if I just can speak off the cuff here, is really the heart of faith that's actually there. Sometimes we say, oh, this generation, faith isn't important. It's more important than I think we've given credit to. And I think as a Catholic district, this is our opportunity to wave that banner high and to bring people into this story. And it might look a little bit different, but this group right here, and they have my complete support. That's why I'm committed more than ever and watching this unfold and helping be a part of that. So I will be sure to share as well in our conversations that we can have down the road of that engagement factor. And I think from how Dr. Zoomless has brought the leadership on board of really saying we want to hear from you. And I think that's always been the case. However, this time is just a little bit different. And especially because of COVID and the pandemic, our rhythm has changed. And so this is a time for us to reflect like never before, but also to respond like never before. So to all the trustees, thank you for your work. We know this is an insane time of leading right now, and you can count on my prayers and the prayers of the Student Advisory Council as we move forward together.
Wow, beautiful message, and thank you so much. It's interesting as we reflect on COVID being the challenge that nobody asked for. You know, I think what you were saying in part is that it also provides opportunities if we look for them. And you have found those. So our deepest appreciation on behalf of the board. I would turn it now back to our Chief Superintendent before we leave you for any closing comments. Dr. Zumlas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to end today, I'm so proud of each and every person who is part of the Student Advisory Committee, from our vice principals to the principals to Michael to John Wash, but most importantly to the students. And you guys have really shone today in how you've conducted yourselves and how you've shared information with our Board of Trustees. And you know that I've been on many calls with you in the past, and I'm so excited and looking forward to our future together as we continue to create Calgary Catholic together. And if we're going to create an awesome school district, we need your voice, we need your opinions, and I think our future looks so bright, and you guys are genuinely filled with faith, hope, and love. And so thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think at this point then, we will say goodbye to these wonderful, wonderful young adults and Steve, and we will just take a quick break, and then we will reconvene with the rest of our meeting. Thank you again, everyone. We'll reconvene at 4 and get through the remainder.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, perfect. So reconvening our meeting, we have nothing under item 7, appointments and delegations, nor do we have an accountability report. So that will get us right to item 9, board decision-making items. And I will turn this to the chief. Actually, let's start with the motion, and then we will have the discussion. Who's on the motion page for that?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would move that the Board of Trustees approves the 2020-2021 district operating budget for release on the district's website and for distribution to any interested stakeholders.
Thank you. We've got the motion on the floor, and I will turn it to the chief to introduce, and we'll invite commentary from trustees. To the chief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I would like to start by thanking Superintendent Naren Kishishandani and his entire team of accountants and financial advisors who have developed the budget. And so today they're going to be presenting items 9.1 and 9.2. And I believe they're going to be, because there's some connectedness between the two, it's kind of one presentation, but two separate motions. Mm-hmm. And so with that, let me turn it over to Naren.
Thank you, Dr. Zumlas. Madam Chair, this is an overview of the budget. As Dr. Zumlas said, it covers items 9.1 and 9.2. The primary difference between 9.1 and 9.2 is 9.1 deals with the budget document for the district, which goes up on the district website, and 9.2 is the budget report that is a filing with Alberta Ed. So at the end, the core is the same, the underlying budget is the same, just two different reference points. Madam Chair, I'd like to start by providing an overview. The district is budgeting a balanced item on this budget, a balanced budget. We do have an operating gap of $4.9 million in the budget, but after making capital transfers, we have a net drawdown from reserves of $1.7 million. That is a $1.7 million draw from our projected reserves position of $15.8 million. And I'll come back to the reserves in a moment. The budget does consider the impact of COVID-19. Primarily, the way we've approached it, Madam Chair, we have 30 additional contingency teachers worth monies budgeted in this budget. We view that as the basis on which we will be able to deal with a certain chunk of considerations that would come through as part of COVID-19, including perhaps additional spend relating to a certain degree of spend on personal protective equipment. So the district is gearing for some of those pieces, but again, should those become as COVID evolves in the weeks and months ahead, we might see that those might the amounts budgeted might fall shy, and we will take it as it comes. The other key piece here, Madam Chair, I wanted to highlight is this budget does include a chunk of cost reductions that have been instituted to make sure that we are responding to the desire for better efficiencies and making sure that our budget is in a balanced structure. As some of the earlier reports presented, Madam Chair, you would have seen, the board would have seen that our overall funding has declined, but our cost reductions have declined at a steeper pace. The primary rationale there is we were looking at instituting cost reductions such that the cost reductions coming outside of schools is at a steeper pace relative to the cost reductions within schools. And we've achieved that very well within this budget. So that is something that we feel is a step in the right direction and something that administration will continue to keep sight of. Madam Chair, the next piece I wanted to address was why a deficit or why do we have an operating gap to begin with? Such that we need to dip into our reserves. And the rationale for that, it's a multi-pronged rationale, Madam Chair. One is recognizing that the pace at which changes have been happening over the past 12 months, we feel we didn't want to shock the system. We wanted to have a bit of a soft landing, making sure that cost reductions are adopted at a measured pace, and it allows the district some time to respond and absorb and internalize those changes. So we feel that was key. The other piece is we do have a higher growth rate of our special education related student growth, and that growth rate being higher than our overall growth rate, that imposes an additional cost pressure. We do have higher transportation costs, again, for more diverse learners. And I think one of the key pieces here also becomes things that are out of our control, things like insurance costs. Insurance, just because of the hardening insurance market across the industry, has imposed some significant additional costs. As a reference point, our insurance costs have significantly gone up relative to last year, and that is kind of offsetting some of the good work in our cost-saving efforts. And lastly, Madam Chair, the fact that as we get into September, we potentially could have some new student enrollments that are above and beyond our projections. If that was to occur, we recognize that our new funding model provides for the funding for those unanticipated the growth of unanticipated students. That funding comes through a year later. So we are cognizant of some of those pieces. But I wanted to close off by talking about our reserves. Administration feels relatively comfortable with the level of reserves we are currently at. Madam Chair, we sit at about, on a budgeted basis, we sit at about 2.3% of our annual expenditures in terms of our reserves. And we feel we have given adequate thought and consideration to a variety of risks that might cross these budgeted numbers. And we feel that while the unknowns will remain an unknown until it actually hits us, but we feel we have put enough thought to consider what might be Plan Bs and Plan Cs to deal with unanticipated aspects. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to stop there and open it up to any questions, comments, or observations the board might have.
Thank you for that, and I will open it up to trustees, and recognizing, of course, that budget is a standing item on every one of our board meetings, and this is very much a process rather than a static event. And the board has walked alongside if you would, as this budget has been developed and assumptions have been made and the provincial realities have become apparent. So I believe we're pretty conversant with the numbers, and we've had I do know, and I would like to express appreciation for the extensive engagement that has underpinned the development of this budget as well. It's one that I feel comfortable in, that it reflects a balance between the realities, the need to be fiscal stewards in an uncertain climate, and also at the end of the day doing what's best for kids. I see Trustee Wellman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I think given that we're going into 2021, we know with far less funding as a result of many changes in last year and again this year with the new funding model. You know, I think we need to be very proud of the fact that administration has presented to us a budget that will be responsive, and given that we don't know what it will really look like in the fall. So as I understand the budget, it is one that takes into consideration right really up to the worst case scenario with what we know in this point in time with COVID and the current public health orders and restrictions. And I think it also keeps in mind the safety and well-being of our students and our staff. And I think that is something to be applauded. And it gives us, and I believe administration, on a go-forward basis when running the day-to-day operations of our schools, the absolute utmost flexibility that they can have, like I said, at this point in time with the information that we have. And I think that's amazing, and the fact that it's a balanced budget and that we're actually only having a drawdown of 1.7 million. And of course, we all know that that will be subject to the approval of the minister. But overall, I think that this is a good news budget, as good as it can be, given all of the realities that we're having to face right now.
Thank you for that, Trustee Wellman. Are there any other trustees who have a question or clarification? Seeing none, again, thank you again to Noreen. Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. I too wanted to commend administration for this good news budget. We are faced with unprecedented times, and the district continues to put students first and teachers in front of classrooms. My one question is around the staffing. I know we offered retirement incentives during the year, but we do have our first-year teachers on their probationary contracts, and will this budget allow for their contracts to be renewed, or those 30 contingency placements be looking at some of our newer teaching staff?
The Chief?
I'm being recorded.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so in response to Trustee Ivanelli's question, we had just under 100 people who took advantage of the early retirement package, and so most of those jobs are not being filled. And then in addition to that, our first-year teachers, it's common practice that a first-year teacher contract is lifted and that the first-year teacher has to apply to get a second year of employment, and there are opportunities that happen. Sometimes it may take a first-year teacher 2 years to secure a job. We're also hopeful that the 30 extra positions that are built into this budget will allow for some of those first-year teachers to acquire jobs in the fall. So yes, some will get jobs, not all, but that's pretty much standard practice on a year-by-year go-forward basis. That's what happens. And I know even when I look back to when I first started in Calgary Catholic, at the end of my first year, I didn't have a job and I needed to reapply and find a job, which I was lucky to do. And that's it's kind of on the luck of the roll every year, year by year.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no further questions or hands up, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion is carried. Thank you for that. If I could have another motion, Trustee Williams may be away from her desk for just a moment.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Trustees approves the 2020-2021 budget report for filing with Alberta Education after the required signatures of the board chair, the chief superintendent and the secretary treasurer are fixed on it. This document is also authorized for release on the district's website.
Thank you. And before we go further, I think somebody needs to mute something there. That
I can't mute them when here.
Okay. It may be a thought then that, okay, I will leave it with you, but we have the motion on the floor. And it's a fairly straightforward motion now that we've approved the budget. The next step then is to submit it as needed. Are there any questions or clarifications? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion is also carried. And again, before we leave budget, our deepest appreciation through the chief to Superintendent Kashishandani and his staff for everything they do on behalf of kids. This is a budget that supports our students, and it's a responsible budget. Thank you. That's going to move us through to item 9.3, new locally developed and acquired locally developed courses. I will ask for a motion from Trustee D'Souza, and then we will have the conversation. Trustee D'Souza?
Sorry, yeah, I just
There you are.
unmuted myself. Okay, I just got to bring up the motion here. I'd like to move that the Board of Trustees approves as required by the Minister of Education the following. New locally developed courses: Biology Advanced 2020 35 3 credits, English Literature 2020 35 3 5 credit, ESL Introduction to Science 2019 25 5 credit, Film Appreciation 15 3 credit, 25 3 5 credit, Mental Health Literacy 15 3 credit, Physics Advanced 2019 35 5 credit, and Religious Education 7, Growing in Faith, Growing in Christ 7. Renewal of the locally developed courses: Band 15 25 35 3 5 credit, Chamber Ensemble 15 25 35 5 credit, Choir 15 25 35 3 5 credit, ESL Expository English 2020 15 25 5 credit, ESL Introduction to Mathematics 2020 15 5 credit, Forensic Science Studies 35 5 credit, Forensic Studies 25 35 3 credit, French Language and Literature IB 35 3 credit, Instrumental Jazz 15 25 35 3 and 5 credit, Marching Band 15 25 35 3 5 credit, Marching Band Visual 15 25 35 5 credit, Military Studies 2020 15 25 3 5 credit, Musical Theatre 15 25 35 3 5 credit, Polish Language and Culture 15 25 35 -12Y 5 credit, Reading 2020 15 25 3 and 5 credit, Religions of the World 35 3 and 5 credit, Studio Art AP 35 3 credit, and Vocal Jazz 15 25 35 3 and 5 credit.
Thank you. So we have the motion on the floor. I'll turn it to Chief Superintendent Zumlis at this point to share some background, and then I see we have Trustee Lowe.
Thank you very much, Chair Martin. And I would like to begin today by thanking Superintendent Haloka and her team for all of their work in securing these courses that are offered for the success of all of our students in Calgary Catholic. You can see by the variety and the depth of these courses that we're trying to afford various pathways for student success. And I think that's one of the gems of Calgary Catholic. So you see before you, trustees, all of these locally developed courses that we would like to either renew or borrow from other jurisdictions. And so with that, we'll just open it up to questions, and Superintendent Haloka is with us this evening to answer any questions that you may have. So over to you, trustees.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Martin. I guess in line with Dr. Zumlis just said, it's to afford various pathways for student success. So when I'm looking at the various courses, associated with each one are schools that they are going to be provided at. So my question is, given this affording various pathways for student success, what goes into determining which school will offer this so that there is that opportunity for equity of opportunity for every student and everyone? Specifically looking as an example at biology advanced, it's only offered in some of our high school, not others.
To the chief.
Thank you, and over to Superintendent Haloka.
Hi, thank you for the question. Yes, certainly all of our schools have the opportunity to offer these courses. For the biology advanced one, this is an advanced placement course. So probably the high schools that are not offering that are mostly those that offer IB programming. And then it would be probably some of our rural schools who would not be choosing to pick that up. But certainly that this could be something that's offered to all of our high schools to teach at any time.
Thank you. All right, I have Trustee D'Souza. Trustee D'Souza, you're muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to juggle screens over here. I have a couple of questions regarding this document. And so excuse my ignorance with some of them. They may have been asked, but I sometimes forget. Okay, just let me go here. One of the courses that's being offered, I think it's new, mental health literacy. And it says it's going to be paired with career life management, calm, and physical education. Mm-hmm. So is that offered at all schools, or is it just at few schools? And I see that it's going to be expanded next year as a specialized course in mental wellness or mental health. I just wanted to get some clarification on that.
To the chief.
Thank you, Chair Martin. And just before I turn it over to Superintendent Haloka, this particular course, I'm really proud that we are acquiring it to be offered in Calgary Catholic. It actually has its roots in St. Albert School Division, who used it this past year. And I had the opportunity to be part of a professional development session where they were talking about its tremendous success with the students. So quite delighted that it's on the list. But to answer your key question, we'll go to Superintendent Haloka.
Yes, and thank you. And to Dr. Zulmus's point, it is something we're really excited to be starting up. It doesn't need to be paired with these courses. It's just a way that they may wish to consider offering it in our high schools. Because it is a brand new course for us, it's one that we are simply pitching out to all of our high schools, and we're hoping we do receive uptake, much like we did with Aboriginal studies a few years ago. So that's why we have no schools listed to be associated with it, because it is new to us. We're just hoping that we can have as much uptake from our schools as possible.
So it mentioned in there that it's going to be paired with phys ed. What if someone doesn't take phys ed and they want to take a mental health course? Are they going to be separate moving forward, or is it going to be always paired up with CALM and phys ed?
To the chief.
Yeah, I think Trustee D'Souza, we heard here that that's a suggested path of offering it, but not the only path. So it doesn't have to be offered with phys ed, but that's just an example that was included in this package today.
Okay. Another question regarding biology advanced. Is that the same as the AP biology, the advanced placement biology, or is this just a different biology that's going to be called advanced?
To the chief.
Over to Superintendent Haloka.
Yeah, it is for the AP program. So you're correct, Trustee D'Souza. It is for the AP. They've just redone the course materials, so we're acquiring the new courses that go along with the AP studies.
Okay, because it was specified under physics, but it was not specified as clearly in this. That's why I was a bit confused. Another question here I have, just a second, I'm just scrolling down.
Trustee D'Souza, if I can, I've got a couple of hands up. I will come back to you. Thanks.
Yeah,
Trustee
absolutely.
Ivanelli and then Trustee Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One quick question. So pleased to see that there is a course in mental health literacy. because the more opportunities for our students to be successful, the better. And I'm pleased to see the variety of course selection available for our students as well. Will these courses be implemented should classes not resume in September, in particular the band, music, and art classes?
Chief?
So we're still working on different scenarios for the fall. We're preparing for the most challenging scenario, that is education with health restriction, scenario 2. And it really depends, once again, on which scenario we're in and the directive from the Ministry of Education. Like currently, the focus has been on literacy and numeracy at the high school level, diploma courses, and as we work on keeping students safe, there may be more of an increased focus on the mandatory course skills or even close personal touch, like if you look at cosmetology and, touching one's hair and makeup and things like that. So we're working very closely with multiple partners to come up with recommendations as we go forward. So in a nutshell, it's hard to say, Trustee Ivanelli, one way or another. We're going to try our best, but we never want to compromise safety of our students and staff as we go forward. So it'll be baby steps as we work our way back to normal.
Trustee Williams.
I would just like to thank administration for one thing, and that is for all the programs that they put in there dealing with music and the arts. Because I think in a lot of cases now with the tightening of budgets, we're seeing school boards that are getting rid of what they figure are frills. So I'm really pleased to see that as Calgary Catholic, we're going to continue in the arts programs.
Thank you for that. I have Trustee D'Souza. You had another question?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I was just curious to know a couple of courses. I think these are new ones. Polish culture, how and language. How did you come about to decide Polish over any other language or culture? Was there a huge demand for it? Or how did that decision come about? So that's one, and I'll go to the next one.
Okay, well, for this one, we'll go to Superintendent Holoka.
So this is a renewal, so it's something we have been supporting for a number of years. So we provide the renewal of LDC for the John Paul II Polish School. And so we provide them with the LDC approval so that they can be offering it. This occurs through our St. Anne's site as a rental. And so this is just a long-standing agreement we have done to support this ability to provide this Polish language and culture program to students that have a desire to do so.
Okay, and how about military studies? Is that an old one too, or is that a new course?
That is renewal, and we do offer that in a couple of different ways. One of that is has been with some in-person learning that occurs within our schools. We also offer this as a component of where we do the travel in the summer school to offer more hands-on studies, which obviously is not occurring this year, but the military studies within the school course is continuing for students, and it's at a few of our schools really of interest to many of our students.
I see, and I just would like to know, do we have any say in terms of if we want to implement a course ourselves into the curriculum? How does that work? I'm still not clear on that, because I'm thinking about, children in Europe and Asia are beginning to have courses in environmental studies and, growing gardens and being more productive that way, climate change, cross-cultural understanding, and those kinds of things. Do we have any leeway in developing those kinds of courses to better
if I can, just to the chief, I think probably it would be appropriate to comment at a very high level on how decisions are made to bring courses in, but I don't know that we can get particularly specific.
All right.
Okay.
So there's a multitude of courses that exist in Alberta, and there's actually the Ministry of Education. They have a repository of all of the existing courses, and there's very specific criteria that's outlined in the Guide to Education. so that any school jurisdiction can create a course if it meets the criteria. But once again, it has to go through the approval process through ministry and also bringing forward to the Board of Trustees as part of the process. So yes, it is possible to create a course moving forward.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And seeing no further hands up for questions of clarification, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, I don't have everyone on the screen here. I've got Trustee Ivanelli, Trustee D'Souza, Trustee Rapp. Oh, there we are. Gotcha. Okay, thank you. All right.
And I say aye.
Thank you. All right. Much appreciated. That will allow us to move to item 9.4, and that is our MOU. I will turn it to the chief, and then we will have a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so it's with great pleasure that we bring to you an update, the ATA Memorandum of Agreement, which I know our team, led by Superintendent Richard Zabota and working closely with Mike Krupa, our Director, Employee and Labor Relations, have reached an agreement with the ATA, and now we bring it for the board today for ratification. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Zabota to just highlight a couple of the key components within this memorandum. So over to you, Superintendent Zabota.
Thank you, Chief Superintendent Zumlis. Through the Chief, again, we did through negotiations come to an agreement on 4 items that would be either altered or added into the collective agreement. First one being substitute teachers, and if they're given short notice for no position available, the addition of a wellness spending account, moving the professional improvement fund into the collective agreement from a letter of understanding, and bringing parity to the adoption leave relative to the parental leave, that being 2 days of leave for adoption purposes. And then the only other piece is that there's a letter of understanding to deal with some of the professional development funds relative to sabbatical leaves. And with that, I will turn it back to Chief Superintendent Zumlis, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
To the board? All right, seeing no questions, again, on behalf of the board, I would like to extend our thanks.
I think, Madam Chair, there is one question from
there's
Trustee.
Linda. Sorry, Trustee Wellman, your hand just came up.
Yeah, sorry, it was, oh, you know what? I just answered my own question. I was just going to check to see if the ATA had indeed ratified the memorandum, but it looks like they did on May 21st. Thank you.
Yes, that occurred last week, Trustee Wellman.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have Trustee Ivanelli, if you would like to make a motion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of Trustees ratifies the Memorandum of Agreement dated March 2nd, 2020 between the Calgary Roman Catholic Separate School District No. 1 and the Alberta Teachers Association.
Thank you. Are there any further requests for clarification or comments, questions from the board?
I'm going to say aye.
Trustee Williams, have you got a question?
No, I'm saying yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you again. Before I call the question, thank you for your work on this. Relationships are certainly important, and at a tough time provincially, this is an agreement, I think, that speaks to who we are. And I just would like to express appreciation on behalf of the board. So with that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Perfect. Thank you. That motion is carried. And that is going to move us to item 9.5. And I will, and these are 3 successive items referring to the cyclical work of the board that looks at policy revisions and updating. And I will have our first motion presented by Trustee Lowe, and then we will have a discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd move that the Board of Trustees amends Board Policy 4, titled Code of Conduct and Sanctions, as follows. Edit bullet point 2 to now read as, trustees shall not be involved in school organizations and/or committees within CCSD. Insert bullet 11.2, which reads as, Trustee behavior and conduct requirements are the same when using technology as when not using technology. Each trustee must recognize that his or her online activity and social media accounts can dramatically affect the general public's perception of the trustee, the board, district employees, and schools within the district. Each trustee's online activity on social media accounts must comply with the Education Act, regulations under the Act, and all board policies, including, in particular, this board policy 4.
Thank you for that. You've got a motion on the floor. Are there any comments from trustees on this regard? Thank you. And recognizing that this rewording is on an initiative on behalf of the board, on the part of the board, to bring this policy forward, taking into account that social media is something that's being used more and more frequently, and it's certainly mainstream. So seeing no hands up, I will call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next motion, Trustee Lowe.
Madam Chair, I'd move that the Board of Trustees, by a quorum of the trustees present, approves that the second and the final reading shall immediately follow the first reading.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, I then move that the Board of Trustees amends Board Policy 4, titled Code of Conduct and Sanctions, as follows. Edit bullet point 2 to now read as, trustees shall not be involved in school organizations and/or committees within CCSD. Insert bullet 11.2, which reads as, trustee behavior and conduct requirements are the same when using technology as when not using technology. Each trustee must recognize that his or her online activity and social media accounts can dramatically affect the general public's perception of the trustee, the board, district employees, and schools within the district. Each trustee's online activity and social media accounts must comply with the Education Act, regulations under the Act, and all board policies, including, in particular, this board policy 4.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. That motion is carried. To item 9.6, policy review consideration, policy 7, first reading, Trustee Wellman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and you'll have to bear with me that this is a very long one, and when I finish reading it, I will have a couple of amendments that I would like to make. So with that, Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Trustees amends Board Policy 7, titled Board Operations, as follows. Amend the first sentence of the second paragraph to read, the board's fundamental obligation is to preserve and to enhance the public interest in publicly funded Catholic education generally and in the affairs of its operations in particular. Insert a new bullet point 1 titled Governing Legislation, which reads, the board and each trustee must comply with the Education Act, the Board Procedures Regulation, the Local Authorities Election Act, and this Board Policy 7 on all matters connected to board elections and operations. Any inconsistency between this Board Policy 7 and the Education Act, the Board Procedures Regulation, or the Local Authorities Elections Act will be resolved in favor of the relevant governing legislation. Amend the existing bullet point 1.1 to now become the new bullet point 2.1, which reads as, within the stipulations of the ministerial order which resulted in the establishment of Calgary Roman Catholic Regional District Number 1 and subsequent ministerial orders, the most recent being ministerial order number 0.3/2013 dated June 5, 2013, the board has decided to provide for the nomination and election of trustees by wards. As noted below, each of four school district wards include 2 complete city wards, and the remaining 3 school district wards also includes an area outside of the city limits in addition to the 2 complete city wards. Copies of the ministerial orders are available from the district office. A map of the district depicting its 7 wards is included in Appendix A and described in full detail in District Bylaw 183-2013, attached as Appendix B. One trustee is elected to represent each school district ward. Amend the existing bullet point 1.2 to now become the new bullet point 2.2, which reads as, the provisions of the Election Act and the Local Authorities Election Act respecting the election of trustees shall apply to every election in each ward. Amend the existing bullet 1.3 to now become the new bullet point 2.3, which reads as, if a vacancy occurs in the membership of the board during the 3-year period immediately following a general election, a by-election need not be held if there is only one vacancy on the board. If a vacancy occurs in the membership of the board during the 4th year following a general election, a by-election need not be held unless the number of vacancies on the board reduces the board to a number that is less than the quorum of the board plus 1. Amend the existing bullet point 1.4 to now become the new bullet point 2.4, which reads as stipulated by bylaw 178-2007, attached as Appendix C, the minimum number of electors required to sign the nomination of a candidate for the election of the board is 25 electors. The nomination form stipulates that these electors must reside within the ward for which the nomination is being sought. Amend the existing bullet 1.5 to now become the new bullet point 2.5, which reads as, the trustees campaign disclosure bylaw 184-2013 attached as Appendix D requires the public disclosure of campaign contributions and campaign expenses of candidates for trustee. Amend the existing bullet point 2.1 to now become the new bullet point 3.1, which reads as organizational meetings. The board shall hold an annual organization meeting in a non-election year. The organizational meeting shall occur at the last regular meeting of the board in June. In any year in which a general election takes place, the organizational meeting shall be held within 4 weeks following the date of the statement of the results of that election is announced or posted, and will be held at a time and place to be fixed by the secretary for the board. Amend the existing bullet point 2.4 to now become the new bullet point 3.4, which reads as, at the organizational meeting and afterwards at any time as determined by the board shall elect one of its members as chair and another as vice chair to hold office at the pleasure of the board. Amend the existing bullet point 2.9 to now become the new bullet point 3.9, which reads as, in the case of a two-way tie vote which is not resolved through following the above described voting process, the tie shall be broken by the secretary treasurer of the board writing the names of the two nominees on equal-sized paper, placing them in a receptacle, and directing some person to withdraw one of the papers. The secretary treasurer shall declare the nominee whose name is drawn elected. Amend the existing bullet point 2.12 to now become the new bullet point 3.12, which reads as, the chair and the vice chair shall hold office at the pleasure of the board until the next organizational meeting of the board, unless a successor is appointed. Amend the existing bullet point 2.13 to now become the new bullet point 3.14, which reads as, the chair and the vice chair shall hold office at the pleasure of the board until the next organizational meeting of the board, unless a successor is appointed sooner. And amend the existing bullet 2.15.5 to now become the new bullet point 3.15.5, which reads as, when a majority for the above positions is not obtained on the first ballot, the procedures outlined in 3.7, 3.8, and 3.9 will be followed. Amend the existing bullet point 3.1 to now become the new bullet point 4.1, which reads as, the board must hold as many regular meetings as it considers necessary to deal adequately with its business. Amend the existing 3.3 to now become the new bullet point 4.5, which reads as, A trustee who is absent from 3 consecutive regular meetings shall be disqualified from remaining as a trustee unless the trustee, and then amend existing bullet point 3.5.1 to now become the new bullet point 4.51, which reads as obtains unauthorization by resolution of the board to do so, or amend the existing bullet point 3.5.2 to now become the new bullet point 4.52, which reads as provides to the board chair evidence of illness in the form of a medical certificate respecting the period of absence. Delete the existing bullet point 3.53. Amend the existing bullet point 3.57 to now become the new bullet point 4.7, which reads as regular meetings of the board will not be held without the superintendent or designate in attendance unless the superintendent's contract is being discussed. Amend the existing bullet point 4.2 to now become the new bullet point 5.2 and edit the last sentence to read as the notice of the special meeting shall be sent at least 2 days before the special meeting by. Combine and amend existing bullet points 4.21 and 4.22 to now become the new bullet point 5.21, which reads as recorded mail to the last known address of each trustee shown on the records of the board. Personal service on the trustee, or amend the existing bullet point 4.2.3 to now become the new bullet point 5.22, which reads as a person capable of accepting service at the trustee's residence, or create a new bullet point 5.3, which reads as fax, email, or other electronic means to be received at the fax number, email address, or other electronic receiving number of the trustee as shown on the records of the board. Amend the existing bullet point 4.2.10 to become the new bullet point 5.2.10 and replace the reference to the School Act with the Education Act. Amend the existing bullet point 5 to now become the new bullet point 6 and replace the reference to the School Act with the Education Act. Amend the existing bullet point 5.5 to now become the new bullet point 6.5, which reads as without restricting the right of the board to meet in private in accordance with the Education Act, items which shall be discussed in private are items of a confidential nature, disclosure of which could reasonably be expected to be harmful to. Amend the existing bullet 5.5.7 to become the new bullet point 6.5.7, which reads as advice from officials or other matters protected under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Insert a new bullet point 7.1, which reads as the Board of Trustees uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items quickly. Items may also be placed on the consent agenda if trustees have had an opportunity to pose questions and have discussion at a prior meeting, or if the nature of the report provided is solely for information purposes. A separate vote to approve the consent agenda is not required. The consent agenda is considered approved if no trustee objects to consideration of the item on the consent agenda prior to the vote of approval of the regular agenda. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of any trustee. The board chair must be advised of such request by noon of the day prior to the board of trustees meeting, in order that the appropriate member of administration can attend the meeting for discussion of the item if necessary. Failure to provide such notice will cause the item to remain on the consent agenda. Reports removed from the consent agenda will be dealt with on the regular agenda, either as board decision items or information items as determined by the board chair. The consent agenda by default may include the board chair's report, the chief superintendent's report, the infrastructure, land, and planning report, approval of minutes, trustee engagement, and representation reports. These reports must be submitted in a written format and shall be received as part of the board meeting portfolio. Delete the existing bullet 6.13. Delete the existing bullet 6.16.7. Delete the existing bullet 6.1.8. Insert bullet point 7.2.3, which reads as consent agenda. Amend the existing bullet point 7.1.1 to now become 8.1.12, which reads as recording of the disposition of all motions. Amend the existing bullet point 7.1.14 to now become,
I think that's 13.
13?
Yeah.
Okay.
7.1.13.
And sorry, I'm just going to back up. I think the other one should have read amend the existing bullet point 7.1.12 to become 8.1.12.
That's correct.
Okay. And reads as recording of the disposition of all motions. Amend the existing bullet point 7.1.13 to now become 8.1.13, which reads as trustee declaration of conflict of interest pursuant to the Education Act. And amend the existing bullet 7.3 to now become the new bullet point 8.3, which reads as the board will direct the chief superintendent to ensure upon acceptance by the board that appropriate initials are affixed to each page of the minutes and that appropriate signatures are affixed to the last page of the minutes. Amend the existing 7.4 to now become the new bullet 8.4, which reads as the board will direct the chief superintendent to establish and maintain a file of all board minutes. Amend the existing bullet point 7.5 to now become the new bullet point 8.5, which reads as part of its ongoing effort to keep staff and the public fully informed concerning its affairs and actions, the board will direct the chief superintendent to institute and maintain effective and appropriate procedures for the prompt dissemination of information about decisions made at all board meetings. Amend the existing bullet point 7.6 to now become the new bullet point 8.6, which reads as the approved minutes of a regular or special meeting shall be posted to the website as soon as possible following approval. The board will direct the chief superintendent to be responsible to distribute and post the approved minutes. Amend the existing bullet point 8.5 to now become the new bullet point 9.5, which reads as required votes. The board chair and all trustees present, unless excused by resolution of the board or abstains as required under the Education Act, shall vote on each question. Each question shall be decided by a majority of the votes of those trustees present. A simple majority of a quorum of the board will decide in favor of the question. In the case of an equality of votes, the question is defeated. A vote on a question shall be taken by open vote expressed by show of hands, except votes to elect the board chair or vice chair, which must be by secret ballot if one or more trustees request that the vote be by secret ballot. Amend the existing bullet point 9.2 to now become the new bullet point 10.2 and modify its first sentence to read as a request to make a presentation shall be made by using the form appended as Appendix E or in writing to the Senior Administrative Assistant, Board Matters, specifying a clear and concise manner for the nature of the concern, its relationship to the board's role, the purpose of the request, and the expected outcome. Amend the existing bullet point 9.9 to now become the new bullet point 10.9, which reads as the board shall always discharge its responsibility to act on behalf of the district supporters as a whole. Presentation shall be specific groups from within the district shall be considered in this context. Amend the existing bullet point 9.1 to read 10.10 and edit the third, fourth, and fifth subpoints to read as the security or property of the district, personal information of an individual, including but not limited to a student or an employee of the district, a proposed pending acquisition or disposition of property by or for the district. Amend the existing bullet point 11.3 to now become the new bullet point 12.3 and replace the reference with 11.2 within 12.2 therein. Amend the existing bullet point 12 to now become the new bullet point 13 and edit the second paragraph to now read as: board members shall be paid subject to what follows: an annual honorarium, a per diem honorarium, and be reimbursed for approved expenses incurred in the performance of their board responsibilities. The board will direct the chief superintendent to ensure that all required payroll and statutory deductions are applied to all relevant amounts when paid. Amend the existing bullet point 12.6 to now become the new bullet point 13.6, which reads as: the board will review trustee compensation once every 4 years, taking into consideration budgetary and economic factors, the ability to attract and retain individuals, as well as other relevant factors. These findings shall be reviewed in June preceding a general civic election. Amend the existing bullet point 12.7.8 to now become the new 13.7.8, which reads as: the per diem honoraria rate shall be $205.20 per day for attendance at such meetings, general meetings of provincial associations of more than 3.5 hours duration, and $107.60 for meetings of 3.5 hours or less, including the associated time travel for out-of-district events. Amend the existing bullet 12.10 to now become the new bullet point 13.10 and modify its first sentence to read as: in district claims may be made for parking while on required board business, in brackets not board related business, certain meals / entertainment expenses when on official board business, and other expenses were deemed appropriate. Amend the existing bullet point 12.11 to become the new bullet point 13.11, which reads as: trustees may also be reimbursed for other expenses directly related to the work of the board, including fax line charges, long distance charges, etc., or for pre-approved purchases. Amend the existing bullet 12.12 to now become the new bullet point 13.12, which reads as: all trustee expense claims shall be reviewed and approved by the board chair prior to submission for reimbursement. Board chair expense claims shall be reviewed and approved by the vice chair. The expenses claim for the vice chair will be reviewed and approved by the chair of the audit committee. Expense claims shall be submitted monthly. Expense claims shall be submitted within a month of the final documentation being received. Amend the existing bullet point 13.1 to now become the new bullet point 14.1 and remove the reference of the School Act, replacing it with reference to the Education Act. Amend the existing bullet 13.2 to now become the new bullet point 14.2, which reads as: the trustee shall make such declaration in an open meeting prior to board or committee discussion of the subject matter which may place the trustee in conflict of interest. Amend the existing bullet point 13.3 to now become the new bullet point 14.3 and replace the reference to the School Act with reference to the Education Act, and number all of the other bullet points accordingly. And this is amend the legal reference to now read as Part 4 of the Education Act, Board Procedures Regulation, Local Authorities Election Act, Income Tax Act, Canada.
Great. Thank you very much for reading that very lengthy motion. I understand that we have a couple of small amendments coming forward. You've mentioned that, Trustee Wellman, and I believe we may have one more as well. So what we'll do is bring the amendments forward one at a time. We'll debate the amendment, come back to the main motion, go through Amendment B, Amendment C until we're done.
Okay, thank you.
So if, yeah, are you wanting to speak now to that?
Yes, well, Madam Chair, the first amendment that I would like to make is really, and the amendments, all the amendments I am going to propose really reflect current practice. The first one is to current bullet 2.3. And it reads that the Secretary of the Board shall give notice of the organizational meeting to each trustee as if it were a special meeting and will serve as pro tem chair until such time as the chair and the vice chair of the board have been elected. I am proposing that we delete the words "and vice chair" and to change the word from "have" to "has." So it would now read that the Secretary of the Board shall give notice of the organization meeting to each trustee as if it were a special meeting and will serve as pro tem chair until such time as a chair for the Board of Trust for the board has been elected. And again, Madam Chair, this is just reflecting our current practice.
Thank you. Trustee Ivanelli, before I come to you, is your hand up to make a different amendment, or are you responding to this?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, my hand is up to make another amendment.
Okay, then we'll deal with this amendment first. Are there any questions? All right, so you have, Trustee Wellman, you made this motion. Can
Yes.
I just have you read it again for clarity?
Yes.
And then we'll vote.
Madam Chair, I would move that the Board of Trustees amend current 2.3 to become the new bullet point 3.3. The Secretary of the Board shall give notice to the organizational meeting to each trustee as if it were a special meeting and will serve as pro tem chair until such time as a chair for the board has been elected.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a motion for this amendment on the floor. Seeing no hands up, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's carried.
Okay,
We're back to the main motion. Is there another amendment?
Yes, if I could, Madam Chair, it follows along the same path. The current 2.5 reads, the Secretary of the Board shall conduct the annual election for the office of Chair and Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees. Again, I'm proposing that we reflect current practice by deleting the words "and Vice Chair." So, Madam Chair, the motion would be that we change bullet point 2.5 to become the new bullet point 3.5. The Secretary of the Board shall conduct the annual election for the office of Chair of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor. Trustee Lowe.
Yeah, I think these are two different things. The change to 2.3 is saying that the chair is now going to be chair the remainder of the meeting. So the secretary treasurer is only the pro tem chair until the chair is elected. The current 2.5, I believe, is referring to the practice of the secretary of the board will actually conduct the election, which is different. They collect the ballots, they count the ballots, they bring they're two different things.
Trustee Wellman, a response?
Just in looking at it again, Trustee Lowe may be correct there, that the chair of the board shall conduct the annual general election for the office of chair. I guess the way I was reading it is typically when the chair is elected, she would then go ahead for the election of she would call for the election of the vice chair. And I don't know if this is, it was not my interpretation that this had to do with the counting of ballots, but it would be actually calling for the nominations for the vice chair. And this is something that is done by the chair. So I would ask Madam Chair if a member of administration, perhaps Superintendent Chishandani, or Dr. Zoomless could answer that, because my interpretation, has to do with the calling of the nomination for vice chair.
Through the to the chief for response. Trustee Lowe, did you have your hand up again to respond, or is that the same?
No, I have my hand up again.
Okay.
Yeah. So, shall I speak, Mary?
Certainly. You go ahead, and then we'll go to the chief.
Yeah. So, no, chairing the meeting would be to call for the election, but conducting the election, that would be the steps of conducting the election of the chair and the vice chair of the board. I still see them reading as two different things, and the secretary does conduct it. The chair of the board does not conduct the election. You call for the election as an agenda item as the chair, but that's what you do, and then you read it in once the election is completed. So I think, if we're waiting for clarification on this is a first reading of this policy change. We could, if they have a look at it and agree that this is not what it reads, then we could bring this as an amendment to our final reading of this policy.
Thank you. To the chief.
Yeah. Thank you, Trustee Lowe, and I would agree with your comments on that one, that administration can definitely take it back, work with our people, and then come forward with more information on the second reading if that works for the trustees.
Yeah, I guess, Madam Chair, the only concern that I have is that during second and final reading, no amendments can be made. So either we make this a motion now or we don't. And I am just going to take it on good faith that the current 2.5 would indeed deal with the actual conduct or the counting of the ballots. I have to tell you that's not how I'm interpreting it, but I'm willing to withdraw this.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe?
Yeah, we had this discussion on parliamentary procedure. A second and final reading, the motion becomes debatable as the main motion. So you can bring amendments. Otherwise, what's the purpose of doing the second and final reading? So.
Okay, thank you for that. This motion's withdrawn. We're back to the main motion. Any further amendments?
Actually, Madam Chair, I did have one more amendment to propose to this particular policy, and it has to do with the current 12.8, which reads, expenses incurred in relation to out-of-town travel requiring board member attendance shall be reimbursed if a claim cannot be made to a relevant organization, in brackets ASBA, ACSTA, Zone 5, TIBA, or if appointed by the board to represent the board. Madam Chair, to keep consistent with the other changes that we have proposed, the change is striking out the word town and replacing it with district. So, Madam Chair, the current 12.8 would be a new bullet point 13.8.
Would you like to move it as a motion then, and we'll be ready to go?
Okay, I'm moving that the Board of Trustees amend the current 12.8 and replace it with the new bullet 13.8. Expenses incurred in relation to out-of-district travel requiring board member attendance shall be reimbursed if a claim cannot be made to a relevant organization, ASBA, ACSTA, Zone 5, TIBA, or if appointed by the board to represent the board.
Thank you. We've got a motion on the floor. Any questions or clarification sought? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That one's carried. Sorry, did somebody have a comment? Okay, seeing none. Trustee, was that was it for you, Trustee Wellman?
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to speak to item 13.7.3.
Okay,
attendance.
Motion? If you'd like to put the motion forward, and then we can.
Sure. Yes.
Sure.
I move that the board amends item 13.7.3 to read attendance at meetings as member of the Executive Board of Directors of official trustee organizations, ACSTA, ASBA, Zone 5, TIBA, and St. Mary's to be added to that list. Our representation at St. Mary's, the rationale for this is that our representation at St. Mary's is not an ad hoc committee. nor is it, and it is external to the board. It's a small amendment, and I feel it's appropriate because St. Mary's is significant enough to be listed on our org meeting. And for the sake of being consistent, I feel it's valued under this item.
Thank you for that. So you've heard the motion. Are there any trustees with questions or comments? Trustee Wellman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the point that I would raise is when I look at 13.7.3, it does refer to official trustee organizations, and I don't believe that St. Mary's is an official trustee organization. That also being said, this is dealing specifically with trustee honorarium or compensation. And currently St. Mary's is not like the St. Mary's rep has never been compensated for attending the committee meetings of St. Mary's. So I think that's another discussion. And if trustees are wanting to discuss whether or not the St. Mary's rep should be paid, then I would say that I would amend it further to say attendance at meetings as members of the executive, the board of directors of trustee organizations, ACSTA, ASBA, Zone 5, TIBA, and the board of directors for St. Mary's. I think we need to make it very distinct that St. Mary's is not a trustee organization. It's indeed a university college.
All right, thank you for that. Are you proposing an amendment to the amendment?
Well, I think first of all, before I propose that amendment to an amendment, I think the discussion has to take place as to whether or not the Board of Trustees would see St. Mary's representative as a position that would draw, if you will, a daily honorarium for attendance at meetings.
Thank you for that. I have Trustee Lowe and then Trustee Ivanelli.
Yes, I would answer yes to that question and support this amendment. The scope of the work under that profile has changed, and we do pay for representation that is not part of official associations, school board associations. So I would say yes.
Sorry, to be clear, you would support an amendment to this amendment that would add St. Mary's University?
I would support amending 13.78 to include St. Mary's University for expense and per diem. Well, it wouldn't be expensive because it's
in town.
In town, but I guess in that note, if there were a St. Mary's thing that the representative was going to out of town, should there be expenses for it? But yes, I support it being paid a per diem as other representative roles of our board.
All right, Trustee Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I have a question on this because when you're a director of St. Mary's, you go to the directors meeting. But is that meant to include any work you do, like the additional committees that you go on? I guess I'd need clarity on that.
Trustee Ivanelli, respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think committee work would fall under this category. I know also we have committee work on many of our boards that does not, where per diems do not apply. So no, it would just be for the representation.
And I think for clarity, 13.7.4, or pardon me, 13.7.5 does say association appointments to other boards, committees, etc. do not qualify. So that means they do not qualify for an honorarium or expenses.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
So, Madam Chair, I just for clarity, I think I'm reading silence as consent, that the board feels that St. Mary's representative should receive an honorarium for attending the couple of meetings that they attend each year on behalf of the board. And if that is the case, then I would propose that Trustee Ivanelli's motion be amended, given that St. Mary's is not a trustee organization, to say that attendance at meetings as members of the executive, that attendance at meetings as a member of official trustee organizations, ACSTA, ASBA, Zone 5, TIBA, or the Board of Directors of St. Mary's University College.
All right, thank you. I did lose you for a portion of that. May I ask you to read that again?
Certainly. So I would move that the motion be amended to read, attendance at meetings as a member of official trustee organizations, and in brackets ACSTA, ASBA, Zone 5, TIBA, or as a member of the Board of Directors for St. Mary's University College.
Back to the mover of the motion, Trustee Ivanelli. Would you be prepared to accept that as an amendment? The board has to approve that. Would you? You could withdraw your motion and read it as read by Trustee Wellman, or we could move on your original motion. What would you like to do?
It's a friendly amendment, really.
Madam Chair, is this where we sort of approve or disapprove of the amendment? I'm not in favor of the amendment.
First of all, I think, Madam Chair, we need to, if Trustee Ivanelli can unmute herself and let me know if she accepts my amendment as a friendly amendment, because it does not change the intent.
I appreciate that it does not change the intent, but to clarify, Trustee Wellman's amendment was Board of Directors at St. Mary's. We are not part of a Board of Directors at St. Mary's. We represent part of the organization of St. Mary's. So I would leave it to my original amendment.
Then I wouldn't be able to. Okay. Then I won't be able to support it because St. Mary's is not a trustee organization, and I would speak against the motion.
Well, we have representation at St. Mary's, just as we have representation at our other organizations as well.
If I could, just for clarity, Madam Chair, what I was trying to do is place St. Mary's after, or showing that St. Mary's is not an official trustee organization. So therefore, if the issue is a member of the Board of Directors, we could say, or as a representative of St. Mary's University College.
I would accept that.
So you would accept
friendly
that?
Amendment.
You would accept that as a friendly amendment? And then
under 13.7.3.
Before we call the question, though, sorry, I've lost you guys a few times.
So can I just
you're back now.
Okay, could I repeat what the motion would be? This is Trustee Ivanelli has indicated that she would accept this as friendly. I will read it. Attendance at meetings as members of official trustee organizations, in brackets, ACSTA, ASBA, Zone 5, TIBA, or a representative of St. Mary's University College. Or instead, and.
Yes, that would be fine.
And that would be considered, Madam Chair, a friendly, I believe Trustee Ivanelli is accepting that as friendly, and that's not debatable.
Sorry, I apologize. I have been kicked out yet again.
Okay.
You have.
Okay. Could I help, Madam Chair? I think our chair has been kicked out again. So the amendment from Trustee Ivanelli is attendance at meetings as members of official trustee organizations, ACSTA, ASBA, Zone 5, TIBA, and a representative of St. Mary's University College. So could we please have a show of hands, all those in favor of that amendment to policy 7?
I'm back.
Okay, so Madam Chair, were you able to hear us? I think we've lost our chair again. Are you back, Madam Chair? Okay, Mary is having technical difficulties, so I just want to ask administration if they did indeed catch that the amendment that Trustee Ivanelli has proposed to 13.7.3, attendance at meetings as a member of trustee organizations, ACSTA, ASBA, Zone 5, TIBA, and a representative of St. Mary's University College has been accepted as an amendment to policy 7.
Thank you.
We have voted on that.
Back to the main motion.
So now we are back, Madam Chair, to the main motion, and I believe.
Madam Chair, I have my hand up. Will there be time for discussion on this?
Pardon me, Trustee Ivanelli, Trustee D'Souza. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Motion is amended. There are a number of hands up.
Okay.
So let's dispense with that.
Take
Trustees.
over, Chair.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you it's Trustees D'Souza, yourself, and Trustee Lowe. So if I get kicked out again, carry the ball. Trustee D'Souza.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm concerned with this amendment, even for putting this in. I really do not believe that St. Mary's is an official trustee organization for us to be represented. So then are we going to extend it and say we're going to have a representative representing at Bow Valley College, Mount Royal University, and the University of Calgary? You know, TIBA, ASBA, and ACST are organizations where we actually go to make significant contributions in terms of our discussion that affect us directly. St. Mary's does not. And I do not believe, you know, it is good work, and we engage very, very heavily with St. Mary's, but we also engage with other educational institutions, and we also recruit our teachers from other higher education institutions. So I'm really concerned that if we set a precedent for this, we're going to have to set a precedent for other institutions, and I do not believe that this representation is really an official trustee organization.
I appreciate that. This question has been asked and dispensed with, though, in the previous conversation, but your objection's duly noted, and there'll be an opportunity when we come to voting on the main motion. I have Trustee Ivanelli. Your hand is gone.
Oh.
I think you're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry. We don't represent any other universities. St. Mary's we are affiliated with because of its Catholicity and the alignment of our priorities, the fact that St. Mary's students become our teachers. It's a very significant reason why we have representation at St. Mary's.
Thank you. Trustee Willman, you had your hand up, but then it's gone. Are you fine? All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this motion? We're back to the main motion.
Trustee Pierre, I just want to respond to that. St. Mary's, actually, I'd like to correct that, is not the only institution where we get our teachers from. We get them from the University of Calgary as well.
That's not what I said.
If I can, I'm going to, thank you. I'm going to draw us back to the main question and just ask that we stay focused on the question at hand, and that's the amended motion that's put forward. Are there any other questions on this? Seeing none, I'm calling the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That motion is carried. That will move us then to our last piece of amendment, which is policy 8. And Trustee Rath, I believe that this one's yours. Oh, sorry, Dr. Zoomless, I missed your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my apologies. But at this point in time, I would like to dismiss the administration that's part of our meeting today. And I wish to thank them for all of their hard work, but they have been working since early this morning.
Absolutely.
And I would just request that Mr. Wash and Omar stay on the call, and everyone else, you are free to go. Narin, that means you too. You're free to go as well. We got it. All good. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. And we have a maximum of 35 minutes, and I'll ask people to bear that in mind as they make their comments. Trustee Rath, over to you to make a motion, and we'll have a conversation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're looking at item 9.7, policy 8. Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Trustees amends Board Policy 8, titled Board Committees, as follows. Amend the first paragraph by replacing the reference to the School Act with the reference to the Education Act. Amend bullet point 2 under the General Requirements section by replacing the word district with the word division. Amend bullet point 9 under the General Requirements section to now read as, members shall not exceed 3 trustees other than the Audit Committee Standing Committee. Amend the first paragraph under the section Standing Committees to now read as, standing committees are established to assist the board with work of an ongoing or recurring nature. Standing committees are usually appointed annually at the organizational meeting. The appointed members shall serve on the committee unless unable to perform the duties assigned or until replaced by a subsequent appointment. Insert, in brackets, standing committee at the top of page 84, beside the heading Audit Committee. Under the section titled Audit Committee, insert the sentence, by the same resolution that approved this policy, the board authorized the Audit Committee as the standing committee that acts in accordance with the points described below. Amend bullet point 1 under membership to now read, the committee will be comprised of a committee of the whole of all trustees, one of whom will be appointed chair, a minimum of 2 and up to 3 individuals external to the district approved by the audit committee, and a staff resource as determined by the chief superintendent, currently the secretary treasurer. Of the external members, at least one member must belong to a business community, and at least one member must belong to the adult learning community. Under the section titled Auditing, in duties and responsibilities, amend the 5th sub-bullet point under bullet point 2 to now read as, consider any impact of the provision of such services on the maintenance of their independence. Disband and remove from the policy handbook the following ad hoc committees: the Municipal Government Act and City Charter Committee, the Airdrie Planning and JUA Committee, and the Chief Superintendent Search Committee. Amend legal reference to now read as Part 4 of the Education Act, Board Procedures Regulation.
Thank you. That's it. That's the that's the motion. Thank you very much, Trustee Rath. Any questions or clarification, amendments? Trustee Wellman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, again, I do have a friendly amendment to propose to this particular policy. And it says amend bullet point 2 under the general requirement section by replacing the word district to the word division. Madam Chair, we have been using the word district all the way through this policy and indeed all of our policies. It's been our understanding as a Board of Trustees that we would use the word division in all legal contracts and legal documentation, but for the purposes of everything else, we identify Calgary Catholic as a district. And I really believe this was just an oversight, and so I would ask that I would move that we delete the section that says amend bullet point 2 under the general requirements section by replacing the word district with the word division. In other words, we would keep it as it is.
Okay, if I can, I will ask so you're proposing an amendment to the motion as read by Trustee
Yes, it's a friend.
Rath. And I see Dr. Zumlis' hand up, and I was just going to call on him for clarity.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is one that we got an opinion on, and our deepest apologies for making a confusion with this one. Trustee Wellman is absolutely correct that on all of our legal documents and contracts, we are referred to as a division, and this is a result of the Education Act that was put into effect September 2019. I think we're on the right path by reverting back to leave it as district, but I would ask that the trustees consider removing the word school, because we are referred to as the district. And so if you take out that word school, if the amendment is revised to say to remove the word school and to revert back to district, I think you would be in good shape. So that would be our recommendation from administration for this particular point.
All right, thank you. Based on that recommendation, Trustee Wellman, can I ask you to read your motion once again for amendment for clarity? We'll vote on that, and then we'll vote on the main motion unless there are other amendments.
You're muted.
Thank you. Trustee Wellman?
Sorry, then I would move as a friendly amendment that we amend bullet point 2 under the general requirements section by deleting the word school and retaining the word district.
Thank you. To the mover of the motion, would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
It's friendly.
Thank you. I think we do vote on those amendments in any case. Is there anyone who would object to that being friendly? Seeing none, okay, then that is our amended motion. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Next motion, Trustee Rath.
Certainly, that the Board of Trustees amends Board Policy 8 titled Board.
Oh, no, you've got one more.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm missing one here. Sorry. I shouldn't have printed. Not the committees.
No. Would you like someone else to read it? It's just the one that.
Yes, actually.
Madam Chair, I would move that the Board of Trustees, by a quorum of the trustees present, approves the second and final reading. Final reading shall immediately follow the first reading.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. No worries. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Trustee Rath, over to you.
Sorry, that the Board of Trustees, by quorum of the trustees?
Yeah. No, that the Board of Trustees amends board policy. We read it again for the last one.
Oh, got to do it one more time.
Second and final, and remember bullet point 2, we've changed it.
Okay, so is somebody going to put that on the screen? I'll try and remember it.
I can read that part.
Okay, I'll see if I can remember it. Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Trustees amends Board Policy 8 titled Board Committees as follows. Amend the first paragraph by replacing the reference to the School Act with reference to the Education Act. Amend bullet point 2 under the general requirement, removing the word school and keeping the word district. Okay. Amend bullet point 9 under the general requirement section to now read as members shall not exceed 3 trustees other than the audit committee standing committee. Amend the first paragraph under the section standing committees to now read as standing committees are established to assist the board with work of an ongoing or recurring nature. Standing committees are usually appointed annually at the organizational meeting. The appointed members shall serve on the committee unless unable to perform the duties assigned or until replaced by a subsequent appointment. Insert standing committee at the top of page 84 beside the heading Audit Committee. Under the section titled Audit Committee, insert the sentence, by the same resolution that approved this policy, the board authorized the Audit Committee as a standing committee that acts in accordance with the points described below. Amend bullet point 1 under membership to now read, the committee will be comprised of a committee of the whole of all trustees, one of whom will be appointed chair, a minimum of 2 and up to 3 individuals external to the district approved by the audit committee, and staff resource as determined by the chief superintendent, currently the secretary treasurer. Of the external members, at least one member must belong to the business community, and at least one member must belong to the adult learning community. Under the section titled Auditing, in duties and responsibilities, amend the 5th sub-bullet point under bullet point 2 to now read as, consider any impact of the provision of such services on the maintenance of their independence. Disband and remove from the policy handbook the following ad hoc committees: the Municipal Government Act and the City Charter Committee, the Airdrie Planning and JUA Committee, and the Chief Superintendent Search Committee. Amend legal reference to now read as Part 4 of the Education Act, Board Procedures Regulation.
Thank you for that. The motion's on the floor. Seeing no hands up, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks very much, guys. That was a bit of a marathon. That's going to move us on to chair report, and I'll accept it as read unless there are any questions.
Madam Chair, I don't have a question, but I would like to commend you on the report. I thought it was really well done and really represents the year we've had. So thank you for the work you put into it.
Thank you. That's kind. That will move us to trustee engagement and representation reports. Zone 5, Trustee Rath.
Actually, we meet a week Friday for our regular meeting, so there's nothing to report, with the exception of that a Edwin Parr winner was chosen to represent Zone 5 at the FGM, and we will be announcing that winner, I'm hoping by the end of the week.
Okay, thank you for that. ACSTA, Trustee Ivanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Board of Directors have had their spring meeting on May 21st. It was a virtual meeting where we virtually toasted the Executive Director, Dean Sarnecki, and thanked him for the impact and dedication he has had on Catholic education for the last 8 years. Dean is retiring, and his last month of work will be in July, pending some vacation time. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that ACSDA sends 2 representatives to Grace, and this year's elected representatives are Pat Bremner from Holy Spirit School Division and myself.
Okay.
And our next meeting is on September 8th.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, thank you for that, and congratulations on your selection. Are there any questions for our director? Seeing none. St. Mary's University.
Yes, thank you again, Madam Chair. I'll just speak to the letter that we all received from President Jerry Turcotte, where he talked about the emergency tuition bursary fund. And I just felt that was a perfect example of how our 2 organizations are perfectly aligned with our priorities and putting students and the needs of students first. He thanked the district and specifically the trustees for our continued support. And I was just grateful to receive that letter and grateful that they're doing a fantastic job navigating around these uncertain waters.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, and thank you for the update. Are there any questions of clarity for our director? Seeing none, on to TIBA. Trustee Ivanelli?
That would be
Trustee D'Souza.
Nothing to report, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Audit?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Okay, and there's nothing from the Metro Group. That will move us to item 12, Chief Superintendent Report. Chief Superintendent Zumlas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so before you, you will see the Chief Superintendent Report. Really proud of the student who is working hard on social justice, Dexter from Monsignor Neville Anderson School, and we're really pleased with that article. We have been working, we have identified a couple other winners of the Schulich leaders, and we did make a video with Kaylee Becky, and we are working on setting up times to create videos for the other student winners, and then we would have a week where one student a day would be showcased, and as we set that up, we'll be inviting the trustees that represent the different schools. So we would have Trustee Rath come when we do the video clip with Michael, and then over at Father Lacombe, I guess that would be Trustee Lowe, correct?
I think so, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll be in touch as we go forward, and other than that, if there's any questions.
Trustee Ivanelli.
Not so much a question. I think today's SAC presentation with the students and these good news stories are just excellent reminders of the great work that our district does and the amazing students that we have. And I'm so grateful that all those kids are being recognized, especially the ones for that tremendous scholarship. That is certainly a well worth presentation to have, and I thank the district for doing that.
Welcome.
All right, thank you for that, and thank you again for your report. And thank you for the information on the Schulich winners. They are a glittering bunch for sure. Are there any other questions for our chief? Thank you. Seeing that there aren't any, that will move us on to infrastructure, land, and planning, and I'll turn to the chief.
I'm not sure. I think there's 13.1, the budget update.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've missed that. Right, you are.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with budget. I've jumped ahead. The chief?
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Chair. And just a reminder that budget is a process, not an event. And congratulations to the Board of Trustees, as well as everyone in Calgary Catholic, for the ratification of the 2020-2021 budget. So way to go. And I know that Superintendent Narin Kishan-Shandani had put together a memo here that summarizes some of the points that he had mentioned in his presentation. So are there any questions related to this?
Seeing none, no. Very appreciative of the clarity in the presentation. Oh, Trustee Wallman.
Sorry, just a little slow on the draw. I just wanted to make sure that administration has a press release that's going to go out about our passing the budget, because it indeed is a good news budget in spite of everything.
I think we did the best we could with the resources that we have, right? And we do know that there were some challenges along the way, but I have to agree with you. I think we came out of this one fairly well. And that we're doing what's right and good for the students and staff of Calgary Catholic. We will also be sharing some other messages with you after the meeting as well. Yeah.
Thank you. And seeing no further hands there, we will move now to infrastructure, land.
So the good news here with the Infrastructure, Land and Planning report is that the Government of Alberta and the Ministry of Education, with its renewal funding and funding to get Albertans back to work and to stimulate the economy, Calgary Catholic was awarded $14.3 million for the capital maintenance renewal funding. And so we're quite excited about that. It means that we can continue to, we have a high standard in all of our schools, but we can continue to look at, getting energy efficient lighting, repairs of roofs and things like that as we go forward. Also attached in this memo is just a project update of the various things that are going on. And if anyone has any questions about the memo before you.
Okay.
I believe Madam Chair has been locked out again.
She has. Chair Martin has been locked out. So I would ask if anybody has any further questions of Dr. Zoomless in this regard. Seeing none, thank you for that. Are you back, Chair Martin?
I am back. You bet.
Awesome. Thank you.
So no questions on infrastructure, land, and planning?
None.
Okay. Then that will move us, having already had our SAC presentation, Student Advisory Council. We move to our last item, which is item 13, COVID-19 update. Again, back to the chief.
Yeah, and so for item 13.4, communication with our parent group is crucial, and so in this particular memo just outlines some of the communications that have gone home to parents, and we continue to try to send home one communication or a newsletter to them on Tuesdays of each week, and a newsletter went out this Tuesday that never made the package because the package was submitted prior to, but I think we're in good shape in keeping our public up to date with what's going on in Calgary Catholic.
Certainly. To trustees with any questions, clarification, or observations?
That's a good job.
Yeah. I would like to actually, on behalf of the board, really extend a sincere thanks, Dr. Zumlas. When we're in something as unprecedented as a provincial pandemic, one of the most important things is frequent, frank communication, and these frequent updates are so important, and I think they go a long way to supporting our parents and the students. The impact of this can't be underestimated, and this is a really important piece of work that's done. So again, on behalf of the board, thank you for ensuring that they're in the loop to the greatest extent possible.
Thank you, and I'm really lucky to work with an awesome team of people, and I know our communication department is phenomenal in supporting the work we do, and so thank you for the compliment.
And believe it or not, that brings us to the end of our public meeting. And before adjourning, I would like to close our meeting with a prayer. I would like to thank everyone for the efforts of today. This has been a meeting where an awful lot of ground has been covered, and where we find ourselves provincially, this is the new normal. I would like us to keep in our prayers those who are struggling, in some ways known only to themselves. The pandemic is certainly part of it, but we can't lose sight of the battles and the struggles that many of us are having, our families and our kids. And to that end, if we could keep them in our prayers as we close our meeting with an Our Father. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. And with that, I'll declare this meeting adjourned, and thank everyone for their time.
Thank you very much.